Okay, so hi and welcome to something completely different than the things I usually do. Um, Someone posted in Discord today, well, someone who is here with us today, the administrator is the username of a fan expansion he created for Dominion, and it looked like it was pretty well done. I mean, all the cards are nice with art and the theme checks out, and so I thought it would be fun to uh, make a video to where I read all those cards for the first time and could react to them, and maybe if you, the spectator or the watcher of this video, are also creating fan cards, maybe we can give you some tips on what is good or bad in designing them. And here with me is the administrator who made all this. So
Hello.
hi. Um, so first of all, I oh, didn't read any cards yet other than theater, and I saw the cover that you created. So you even made your own expansion cover. That's pretty sweet.
Thanks.
And I think the
Yeah.
art fits nicely, but you probably got that somewhere, right? From the internet or
Oh, yes, yes. Well, almost, yeah, just about every one of these pictures were in the public domain already.
uh-huh.
So these are all, almost all pictures from the actual 1800s, or at least very early paintings.
Okay, cool.
But some are not.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I tried whenever I could to avoid copyright.
Well, as long as you don't sell them, I guess it's kind of fine. So there's a I'm here in the forum. I will link that in the video description too if you want to watch it yourself. How long have you been working on this, and have you play tested it, or is it just?
Yes, I've been working on this for about 2 years, I would say.
Ooh, that's
Um, Off and on.
yeah.
Um, I have a version in print that I have play tested a couple times with my friends, but not too too vigorous an extent.
Okay, so nice. That's cool because many people don't actually play test the cards they make, and then you get some crazy stuff. All of these have seen some play by you.
Um, some of the some of the newer ones, not quite yet.
Yeah.
Like many of the low cost cards have not had a chance to be play tested
Mhm.
yet, but
Mhm.
um, all of the expensive cards, save for one, have been.
Mhm. So yeah, it's how many cards does it have? 32, you
Uh,
said.
32.
And by scanning over the quick introduction you gave, 16 expensive ones and 16 cheap ones, yeah?
Mhm.
That's kind of fun. So there are there are like two parts of the expansion.
Yep, it's like half prosperity, half um,
Ruins.
ruins.
Uh, and you know all of the real sets?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay. Just sometimes there's like people creating cards that have already been there. Or
Right.
yeah. Okay,
I
so
started this before Nocturne came out, so I've had to change some cards in response.
mhm, probably some card names from Renaissance.
Yeah,
I could imagine.
yeah. Uh, I was a little sad when Cathedral got taken,
Okay, yeah. Okay,
but
so
yeah.
yeah, Theater is one I already read, but I can read it again. Plus one card, plus one action. If there are no other cards in the supply that instruct you to receive at least, and then you list two cards, +1 card. 2 actions, you get +1 actions and +1 buys. Okay, that's a bit weird. +1, at least +1 buys. Okay, +1 buy.
That might be
Um,
a typo on buys.
yeah, probably. And then under this underline, you add 3, 1, 1 to the cost of these cards for each case above, respectively. So the base cost of this is 2 for a cantrip. And if I understand this correctly, it gets a 5 cost when it gets the extra card
Hmm.
and nothing else. And well, you add 3 to the cost for the card and 1
Hmm.
for the extra action and 1 for the extra buy.
Yep.
Okay, so at least I understand it correctly, but you could, of course, also misunderstand that
Mm.
under the line, right? Like you had to, I had to think a bit about what it would it mean. The other thing that first came to my mind is that it's a lot of text,
Mm.
and the text gets pretty small because of it. Uh,
Right. Yeah. I've.
but I mean, I don't think there's that much you can do about it. That doesn't change the
Mm.
card a lot. Like you could make it simpler, but then the
Right.
card would, of course, be quite different. Yeah, as you wrote it, or maybe you can say in your own words what you thought about the card.
Yeah. So this is one of, if not my favorite card in the entire set, actually, because it basically becomes what you need most
Mm,
in any kingdom, especially in regards to making an engine. So oftentimes you'll see a perfect strategy, but then you'll see that there's absolutely no action, no villages on the board whatsoever. And so if you happen to have theater also on that board, well, then that's no longer a problem. It is the perfect supplementer. And so in that way, it's kind of like the actor in whatever part you need.
it's kind of if this card is on the board, there's probably always some kind of engine that you can build.
Yeah, pretty much.
Except like heavy junking and no trashing,
Yeah.
and then well, trashing is like the only thing that this card
Mhm.
doesn't do
It, it
for you.
it actually originally had trashing as well as the
Okay,
fourth
but
option,
that's probably that's probably
but
a lot of
but
smaller text then.
yeah, it was too much.
Yeah. Um, but I mean the costs kind of check out with existing cards. So if it's your laboratory, it costs 5, and if it's Lost City, it costs 6, and even if it's all three, I mean, then it costs 7. Probably isn't even all that good anymore if it costs 7 because the rest of the kingdom must be kind of bad.
Mhm.
Then it's probably hard to hit 7 often enough to not just go for a money-ish thing.
Yep.
But maybe it's there for you. And then it could, of course, also happen that you have cards that actually draw, but don't have +2 cards written on them, right?
Right.
So I don't know what cards do
It,
that. Um, does Oracle do this? Or like
I think Oracle has plus
+2
two
cards in the
cards.
second option, right? Uh, Scrying Pool, huh? Yeah, Scrying Pool, for example. Or Library, the draw to X things don't extract you to draw +2 cards.
Yeah, so draw to X does not count as explicitly plus two cards.
Yeah, but
So it would still work as a lab in kingdoms with draw to X.
it's probably fine because labs and draw to X don't really synergize anyway as much.
Hmm.
It's fine to have labs in your draw to X engine, but sometimes they are kind of redundant. Yeah, other than that, the card is pretty dead if everything is there, like a 2 cost. One thing that's interesting is if the supply pile that has the cards is empty, does it count as not being there?
Yeah, I would like to think it does. So in that respect, it does kind of work like City.
Yeah,
So like if the labs run out, now this is another lab.
yeah, and changes in cost, so it might be worth to invest into them when they are cheap.
Hmm.
That's kind of cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, kind of interesting also with like split piles. Uh, when your sauna is
Hmm.
still on top, you can get this for cheap, and then Avantos get revealed, and it
Yep.
becomes worse. No, no, it becomes cheap when Avantos are revealed, and once Avantos run out, it becomes pretty good and is expensive again. Something like
Yes.
that. And I don't know if there are others. Well, encampment would be another one, right?
Hmm.
Gets really cheap while the encampments are there. If there's no
Yep.
other
The,
actions and draw on the kingdom.
hmm.
And when the encampments are gone, suddenly
It
really good.
shoots back. Yep.
So yeah, pretty cool stuff.
Yes.
Um,
So
and
I really like that variable aspect of it, though it does sometimes it might lead to tracking issues. So I thought of maybe introducing tokens, like put the +1 card token on it to count it, but then that just increased the text of the card, and I decided
yeah,
against it.
okay. Is there another token that you introduced? A card token?
Uh,
Because you
no,
said
because
plus. Oh,
yeah,
the adventure token, the plus one
right,
card.
right, right.
Okay.
Those adventure tokens that say,
Yeah.
um,
Okay, yeah. Probably much more text then. And
yeah,
plus cards aren't really a tracking issue because you just draw them and then it's all done.
mhm,
Actions sometimes and buys sometimes, but I think you can. It's rare enough that it doesn't really matter. So yeah, I like the card for sure. Some of
okay,
the options are just kind of cards that you know how they play, right? It's not nothing
mhm,
new that you have a lap for 5 in your kingdom.
right,
And most of the time, the theater probably doesn't change mid-game what it does.
mm,
Okay, let's go to the next. So now all the cards I haven't seen, so let's see if
right,
we see some cool stuff. These are the expensive ones first, huh?
yeah. So
Entrepreneur.
this is the newest one.
Uh-huh.
I thought of it after Inventor came out in Renaissance.
Yeah,
So this one has not had a chance to be play tested, so it's the most potential for uh,
for being
bad.
off the mark.
Yeah.
Plus 2 buys, plus 6 coffers, plus 6 debt. I think you word that differently. Take 6 debt tokens or something.
Mm,
At least the original cards do word it differently. Gain a card costing up to 3. This sounds pretty broken already, but what's under the line? Well, it's also 6 cost, so. While card is in play, cards cost 1 less, but not less than 0. So you. Oh, that's kinda. So the two things don't really synergize with each other, right?
no, and that's almost intentional.
Yeah. So I mean, the gain a card up to 3, basically up to 4 from the first play.
Mhm.
And the 6 coffers are great, but you really want to not be in debt when this is in play. So yeah, that's is kind of cool. It reminds me, of course, of Capital, but this is also
Right.
terminal action. So it's
Mm,
probably even harder to make work than Capital, and you don't really have. Well, it's kind of the opposite of Capital. You first have to pay the 6 debt, and then you can spend the 6 coffers some turn if you choose to keep the coffers and pay off the debt with treasures or something.
yep, basically that.
But it's pretty hard to say if this is too strong or too weak for me now
Mm,
because it's such a effect that's kind of all over the place. Plus 6 coffers, obviously a great effect. Plus 6 debt. I don't know how good it is to exchange 6 coffers for 6 debt and gain a card costing up to 3. It's basically Inventor, right?
Yeah.
So how good would be?
So it's basically an inventor combined with a reverse capital,
Yeah,
fitting the entrepreneur theme. Um, but yeah, so
and
the
with
reverse
buys
capital,
attached. Yeah,
yeah, yes. So like capital, it has the plus buys, and so the reverse capital, yeah, basically you sacrifice the rest of your coins on this turn for potentially more in the future. So that is an effect that I think. Well, first when I played capital, I remember thinking, oh, that would make a lot more sense for
yeah,
capital. Just
yeah. From theme.
yeah, from theme. But yeah, so I thought of something similar would be interesting.
Yeah, I think it's surely interesting. Compared to Inventor, I would probably think Inventor is still better because Inventor can gain itself,
Mhm.
and this as a 6 cost is pretty hard to get going.
Right.
And you don't really want your 6 cost to gain you more 4 costs on the first play.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, could also be a really good money card. Just don't really care about building your big cost reduction engine and just take the 6 coffers and save them up for a turn. If you and gain like a silver. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, the next card is Hospital. 6 cost, look through your discard pile. You may trash any number of cards from your discard pile or hand. Ooh. Of course, a insane effect if there's no other trashing. Um, but also expensive for a card that only trashes and does nothing else for you. One step above Doctor, one step below Donate. In terms of quickly getting rid. Quickly, you first have to hit 6, right? Original
That's true.
didn't allow trashing from your hand. Well, that was probably a pretty bad. But it
Yeah.
didn't do trash from hand. And also, and super swingy. And
Yeah.
it's still extremely swingy, right? If you imagine one
Mhm.
finding this at the top every time and the other just being done after one play because it was at the bottom.
Mhm. Yes, that is true.
Being a 6 cost, I kind of want this to do something else other than trashing as well. Like, maybe it's too weak, in too many
Mhm.
games. You often can't wait
Mhm.
with your trashing until turn 6, so you start trashing anyway, until you hit 6,
Mhm.
unless there is no other trashing. So you start trashing anyway, and when you already trashed a few cards, it's probably not worth it to invest 6 coins into even more trashing for no benefit. It's like you would probably never get another chapel after
Mhm.
you already started trashing. So I only
Yeah.
really see this being played when there's really no other trashing.
Mhm.
So maybe something to consider. Or you could make it cheaper, but then the 5-2 gets insane, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It can't really be 5.
Could use
Um,
depth token. I mean, you already use depth, so that shouldn't be a problem for your expansion.
yeah,
Could
that's true.
could maybe cost depth. Like 6 depth would be kind of interesting, I guess, as a
Yeah,
no
I'll
play.
I'll I'll put that as a note.
Kind of swingy then again for the one who finds it turn 4
Mhm.
versus turn 3. I don't know. I guess that's just how it is then. Chapel is also swingy when one person misses, once Chapel misses the shuffle.
Yeah, that's true.
So infantry, 6 cost, plus 3 cards. You may reveal and return a card from your hand to the supply. If you do, each other player discards a card and gains a copy of the revealed card to their hand. So it's Ambassador with Urchin and Smithy, something like that in combination.
Basically, yeah.
So you can only return a card,
Um,
one card
mhm.
from your hand each time you play it. But isn't this too bad when it's stacked? Like playing 5 of these pins the opponent? Oh, it gains to their hand, but still you can
Yeah,
pin them with coppers. Uh, but you
yeah. So
still
that
have, yeah.
they choose the card to discard. So
Oh, they can
um,
discard the card they just gained.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Ooh,
so
this,
at worst, um it junks one
yeah,
of the current hand.
yeah. Okay, yeah, at least you can't pin. Uh, still seems really powerful. A
Mm.
junker that has +3 cards and potentially never stops junking. And also thins you.
Thing is, it does junk only while you have junk to give.
Right. And you don't have to reveal a good card if you happen to have no junk. So still I imagine games with this ending with one player having 20 junks and you having no junk in your deck.
Mm.
Unless people are kind of even with their build. How has playtesting been gone with this card?
Um, this one in particular, I do not recall people buying it,
Oh,
but it's because I tend to not buy attack cards. So
that's
um,
okay. It's also kind of hard to get. Like it's a Smithy for 6, but then it also thins you and attacks each opponent. Probably worth to get even if you don't build an engine, like as your terminal of choice. Seems pretty
mhm.
good to thin your estate and junk your opponent with an estate after you played your terminal action. So I would guess this is pretty strong. Strong in money and also strong in engine, of course.
Mm. So
But maybe not too strong. I mean, it also costs 6. It kind of has to be strong.
right. Uh, so would you suggest weakening it?
I would,
Like
I
maybe,
would, I would keep it as it is until you. I mean, it's not like this is getting published now and it has to be perfect.
right?
So
Yeah.
maybe after like 5 or 10 more plays with it, you find that it's too oppressive.
Mm.
Do you play 2-player or multiplayer?
Uh, when I played, it was multiplayer.
Okay, so yeah, cards like Ambassador get even more obnoxious in multiplayer usually.
Right.
Uh, but I guess maybe that's less so because you first have to get a plan to get to 6. Uh,
Mm.
and if that plan is buying silvers, then you probably don't play it all that often. I think it's strong, but probably fine. Meeting House, 7 cost, +1 card, +1 action. Was this Cathedral originally? You may trash a
Yes.
card from your
Yes, it
hand.
was.
What did you say?
Yes, it was.
Okay. You may trash a card from your hand. If you do, one coffers 1 coin. 1 point.
Mhm.
This is, in my opinion, too weak for 7. Like your 7 costs have to be probably
Mhm.
around King's Court level. And
Yeah, it
this,
was originally 6, but then some were saying it was too strong at 6.
mm,
But I actually feel it should go back to 6, actually.
I mean, it can't be 5 because of Junk Dealer.
Yep.
Stronger Junk Dealer for sure. But between 5 and 6, there's still some power spike that you can justify putting this at 7, at 6. Also, if you don't trash any, and if you don't have any trash, if you don't have trash anymore, this is just a cantrip. Or you just coffers, uh, don't make the coffers depend on the trash. Then it could maybe be a 7. Then it's like Baker with
Mm,
trashing for a point. The point obviously has to be kind of conditional by the law
right.
of not making cantrip VP
Right.
tokens.
Mhm.
So either you do like something that buffs it for 7, or in my opinion, or you make it 6 again.
Yeah.
Those would be my suggestions.
All right. Noted.
Artillery. Each other player with 5 or more cards in hand reveals their hand. You may discard your hand to discard a card from theirs of your choice. Gain a copy of one of the non-victory cards discarded this way. Okay. So it's pillage that's repeatable, but you have to sacrifice your hand. And you can decide if you want to do that.
Mhm.
That's kind of fun.
Yep.
But I kind of feel like it's not worth it often enough for a 7 cost
Mhm.
to do it. Like, why would I buy a 7 cost? I mean, obviously there are the decks that Tactician go well with, where you have your payload not in treasures and then you don't mind discarding. Those aren't all that common, I would say. Maybe 20 to 30% of the boards where you can get
Right.
enough non-treasure payload that you don't mind discarding your hand at the
Mhm.
end. And if it, if there is no engine like that, then I can't imagine spending 7 to skip my turn to discard one of their cards and gain something out of it. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
you gain a copy of the card. That's at least something.
Yeah, that's true. There's also the situation where if it's the last card you play in an engine, you might still have some virtual gold built up to also buy a card of your own.
Yeah, that's what I described by the tactician
Oh.
type engines, where you don't mind
Mhm.
discarding a hand at the end.
Right. Oh, okay. I
Those
see.
are kind of rare,
Mhm.
unless you specifically build a kingdom for it. Yeah, surely they happen from time. As I said, like
Yeah.
I think 20 to 30% you can build an engine where you have still payload
Mhm.
after artillery.
This was originally non-victory, like not including the non-victory.
Oh,
So
so it
in
gains
my mind, I was
provinces.
thinking, yeah, people either have the choice of either hurting the opponent by
Yeah,
making them discard their gold, for example,
yeah.
or not hurting them but getting a victory out of it.
And then this again is dead if there's another attack that discards them. Like if you have this in a minion engine, you could imagine
Right.
like a minion would theoretically go well with it with its virtual coin, but then it doesn't work
Mm.
anymore.
Right. Right.
Or like an urchin in your deck. That's the
Mm.
villain problem, kind of, where it just doesn't work, doesn't do anything if your opponent has already discarded.
Mm.
Hmm.
So too weak for 7.
I don't really think the cost is really the problem here. It's either
Mm.
obnoxiously strong in the right deck or it does nothing.
Mm. Right.
That's kind of my
I see.
take here. And if it's really strong, then you don't mind the 7.
Mm.
And if it's not strong enough, you just skip it. Hmm.
I was thinking instead of um, yeah, I was thinking it's hard when it's not discard your entire hand because I was thinking maybe discard down to like
Mm.
2,
Mm.
but then that still opens the possibility of um, yeah, just like basically it not being as big of a drawback.
Maybe like something like discard two treasures
Mm.
could maybe be reasonable. Like if you discard two coppers, it kind of costed you 2 coins. Um, you could even make it probably cost 6 then, since I don't know if it doesn't work anymore if you don't have any treasures in hand, right? So
Mm.
probably I don't know if that even weakens it, but it feels kind of harder to activate, and I don't know.
Noting that for artillery.
Police station. Reaction card. Draw until you have 7 cards in hand. Discard any number of cards, then draw that many. Look through your discard pile. You may trash a card from it. You may gain a card from the trash. Oh, this does a lot of stuff. When another player plays an attack card, you may first set this aside from your hand. If you do, play it at the start of your turn.
Yeah. So my idea of this was basically jack of all trades, where the idea is to, after being attacked, jack of all trades is good because it reverses some of the effects of it.
Hmm.
So my idea was jack of all trades that basically completely undoes the effect of any attack that could have been played on you.
Okay, so it undoes. First of all, it reacts obviously.
Hmm.
Then you have to play it. Also costs 7 debt, so that's something not a lot of cards do. Actually, no card does cost 7 debt.
Hmm.
uh, so you always can buy it early if you feel like you need to.
Yep. And then it
Uh,
doesn't ruin your third turn.
so you, first, it's like draw up to 7 twice, right? Draw up to 7, discard your junk, draw up to 7 again. So that's pretty good. And then you also get to trash a card you don't want, so that's even better. And gain a card from the trash, like sometimes that's useful, right? That's not
Hmm.
always useful, but especially early on it's useless, and later on it happens, right?
It's useful for when your card has just been trashed by an enemy attack.
Yeah, I imagine your opponents won't buy many trashing attacks when this is in the kingdom.
Mm.
This is kind of the problem of the reaction being too strong. So it's not worth
Yeah.
you trashing your opponent cards anymore, or trying to.
Mm.
And you don't
I
buy
was I was yeah. I was
Swindler into this.
mhm. I was thinking of actually that's exactly what to do. A card that would basically scare an opponent from buying attacks without having basically a card that punishes them for attacks.
Yeah, the problem with these have you read some of the
Yeah, I read
things?
about um, the issue with
Yeah, with
basically
counter reaction, counter attacks, something like.
yeah
The issue
counterattacks
with that
and
is then you don't buy the attack anymore because the counter attack
mhm,
is too strong, and then you don't
right
buy the counter attack anymore because no one buys the attack, and then you have too many
yeah
dead cards in the kingdom. And I could imagine this happening, although the effect here is otherwise strong enough that you would anyways buy this, so this wouldn't be dead.
yeah
Like draw up to 7, trash a card, and draw up to 7 again
mhm.
with discarding and filtering and all this stuff is very strong.
Yeah. So my idea was it had to be good without anyone buying attacks, so people would still buy it, but um, it couldn't like punish the opponent directly for buying an attack.
Good prop. I think it's
Hopefully,
strong enough, the card, that you could make it draw to 6 only.
mm,
7 isn't all that much if you can spend it over 2 turns. Like 7 coins is much harder to
mhm,
pay off or to achieve than 7 debt. You just
right.
like could open this every time.
Mhm.
You will open this every time. Could even open 2 of these. Probably you will open 2 of these a lot of the times.
So So up to 6 like Watchtower?
Yeah. It's still a lot stronger than Watchtower because you can, after
Right.
drawing to 6, discard your greens and treasures and really search for. You have a lot of search space with this.
Mm.
Like potentially, if you draw this from the starting hand, play this as your first actions. First action, you draw first 2 cards, and then you can search
Mm.
up to 6 more cards, so that's a search space of 8 already. If it
Mm.
only goes to 6.
Right.
Um,
That's true.
and it also trashes. If you want to save words on the reaction part, you could
Mhm.
probably say set this aside for a villager.
Mm.
Um, would make it stronger again, I guess. You can then still play your virtual coins first and then draw up again. Probably not really worth it if you don't have villagers already in your expansion. It would be kind of weird to gain villagers all of a sudden.
Yeah. Um, this this whole thing started before villagers
Yeah,
were a thing, so I
yeah,
don't have any cards that include them.
yeah, no. Yeah, then it's reasonable to not mess around with that. Um, yeah, I think I like the card of, and I think it's really, really strong, and you can probably nerf it without it being bad. It's just my feel here.
Okay. Yeah, definitely I can reduce it back down to 6
Or was it 6
cards.
at some point?
Oh, sorry, not back. Down to
Okay,
6.
okay.
Yeah. My idea for 7 was it. I was just thinking, oh, it should be stronger than Watchtower.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it is a much stronger than Watchtower, that's for sure. Even if you don't,
Yeah.
even if you couldn't trash with it and couldn't
Mhm.
gain a card from the trash, it would still be much stronger than Watchtower.
I think I remember why I thought 7 originally is because I wanted to completely reverse the effect of what's it? Um,
Library?
no, the attack that makes can make the next 3 cards in your deck all greens.
Rebel?
Um, yeah, rabble.
Okay,
Because if someone repeatedly rabbles you, it's possible that your top 3 cards
okay.
um, are all greens.
Okay, yeah,
So
that's kind of rare.
yeah,
I,
it's true.
it happens if the opponent isn't as good as you and
Right.
starts buying green too early or something. If both players are kind of good, then it's pretty rare that there are 3 greens on top. And even then,
Mm.
you kind of revert most of the damage with
That's
6.
yeah. Six should be just fine.
Is there any card that you can't counter with this? Let's think about it.
Yeah, I tried,
Even the
but
newer
please.
ones.
Actually, no. I don't think it can reverse a hex.
Yeah,
But I mean, I
like
don't think any of the hex.
envious and deluded are
Right.
rough too.
And it can't get rid of your miserable.
Plus 2 VP if you are miserable. Okay, so if it's you could also just make it 8 dead to be more in line with the other dead cards, and so you
Mhm.
can't open 2 of it.
Right.
Stock exchange. Treasure card, action treasure card actually. Spend any number of actions, buys coins, or discard any number of cards. For each, choose one +1 card +1 action +1 buy +1 coin. So you can spend your. Uh, whoa! What is this? This is so. This is. You you will have so many options.
So basically, apt to its name, stock exchange. You can exchange any vanilla resource for any other.
So there's no reason to not just spend everything you have, because you can just rearrange them in whatever order you want.
Basically.
So
I
you
mean, unless
could,
this card you don't want to discard.
oh yeah, discard. That might be the one thing that you can't. This is all over the place. I, I can't really evaluate that. It's too hard for me. I can't imagine this ever being a real card.
Mm.
uh, I mean, it's pretty creative, but I think you should tone down a bit if you want this to be played and actually be a fun card.
Mm.
Um, that you limit the amount of things you can do.
Mm.
Like with other cards that exchange resources into other, it's pretty clear what they are useful for, right? For Apprentice, you turn cards into draw, and
Mm.
uh, here
Storyteller,
here
money, two cards.
here you yeah money into cards, and here you can do kind of everything you want, and it's kind of weird.
Mm.
And also action treasure, so you can play it at any phase. If it was just a treasure, I probably would find it less confusing because then it's kind of limited the amount, it kind of already limits the amount of exchanges that are useful for you.
Mm.
And you really want to exchange your actions into coins and your excess buys into coins and your victory cards into coins, right?
Right.
Don't even think that would be all that bad. If it was just a treasure. You probably don't exchange your coins into anything at this point. Maybe into buys if there's no other buy.
Yeah, so originally what the card originally looked like was the action phase event was um, basically spend as much spend anything for +1 card for each thing, and then in the treasure phase it was spend anything for +1 coin.
Okay, so it was more specific.
Yeah, it was more specific to each phase, but then that made it have basically almost as much text as police station,
Yeah, that's right.
and it
Uh,
seemed a little needlessly restrictive.
I mean,
But then this is pretty like absolutely no restriction whatsoever.
I just imagine like, uh, what is your player level if you play online?
Are you asking what my rank is?
Yeah.
It's 54.
Mm, okay, so pretty high uh, compared to the Dominion population.
Mm.
I imagine this not being as much of a problem with lower level players because they just don't really. Probably I shouldn't talk about what lower player levels think,
Mm.
but for high level play, I would imagine there being so many things possible that some players would just play this and then wait for 5 minutes until they decide what exactly exchange into what. And I
Mm-hmm.
think this process is probably not really fun for anyone. So
Mm.
limiting more what's possible is probably good then.
Mm. So do you think I should go back to splitting it between different effects for different phases?
Either that or just make less stuff possible. Like just make it clear that here you can exchange actions and buys into coins and draw or something.
Mm.
Something like that, like not make it possible to spend actions into actions, essentially.
I see.
Or you just make it just a treasure. But
Okay.
it's maybe it's fun enough as an action treasure if you can only spend actions and cards into buys and coins or something. Well, at this point,
Yeah.
it probably could be a treasure. Or you make actions and coins, no actions and buys into coins and cards. Like cards is the thing you essentially want in the action phase.
Hmm.
Oh, in the action phase it also costs an action to play, huh? So it's worse already.
Yeah.
Confused.
Yeah, there was actually the consideration that also an original version, it started with it gave you +2 coin.
Okay.
So you could turn that coin into card in action if you wanted it to be a
Okay.
cantrip during
Yeah.
your action phase. Um, but then people thought that was way too strong, but I think now it's too weak. So
Yeah, it's weak and
I
completely confusing.
yeah,
I
so
mean,
for
it's
sure,
probably strong in the right kingdom, right? If you have
right.
like your champion engine with some cantrips in it, then
Mm.
you get it.
For sure, I want to bring back the 2 coin when played because I think it needs to give you something
Oh yeah,
to start with.
if you make the options simpler, then I
Mhm.
could see it having another vanilla bonus to make up for it, and then it might still be fine as a 7.
Mhm.
So yeah, those are my points there. Kind of too
All right.
many options, too complicated.
Okay.
Uh, Factory. This one sounds simpler, but I don't know what a smog is. 3 cards, 1 action, gain a smog. Probably something bad because 3 cards, 1 action is great. Costs 8.
Yes.
8 is also a lot. The next
Yeah.
advancement on laboratory. Well, where's the smog card?
The small card is it's about halfway, right after
More
Metropolis.
down? Oh yeah.
Yeah, more down. It's the
One
very beginning of the second section.
+1 actions. If you have a smog and play, trash this. What? Why?
Why?
Why not just +1 action trash this?
Um, well then you can just trash it the first turn it draws up,
Yeah,
but
you can do this anyway.
uh
You have another smog in place, what you mean?
is that oh yes.
And how many
Right.
smogs are there?
Yes.
20. Or no, yeah, 10 times number of players. So
You're
20.
right. It should say another smog.
Okay.
That's a
Oh,
mistake.
that makes more sense then. um,
Yeah.
20 in a
Oh,
two-player game and then 30. Oh yeah, because you junk yourself. Still weird to start with 20 and then go up by 10. Like all the other junk cards do 10 for
yeah,
two player.
I was thinking maybe keep it at 20 and instead of trash this, return to
Return.
supply.
Yeah, that would be probably reasonable because factory is so good. And maybe there's another way to trash a smog.
Yeah, I think I should change to return to supply. And then that way I can keep it at a constant 20.
Yeah, that seems fine. So 3 cards, 1 actions, and then you potentially just have to pay back the card at some point. If you are lucky, you can do it immediately because you draw 2 smogs together.
Mhm.
But you always will have 1 smog in your deck. It's hard to get rid of the last smog.
Exactly. And that is thematically intentional. It's
Yeah,
always hard to get rid of
yeah.
the last bit of pollution.
Uh, I will do a quick pause.
Mhm.